Paul Maguire, longtime Bills legend, Bills punter, longtime broadcaster. He's going to join us next. He's going to be broadcasting a game on AXS TV, the 122nd Monon Bell Classic college football game between Wabash and DePauw. But we're going to talk to him a little bit about that. But we're going to talk to him mostly about his career and what he thinks about this year's Buffalo Bills and the state of the NFL right now. Paul Maguire, one of my all-time favorites growing up watching the Bills. Up next, 222-6397. You're listening to us on 95.7 ESPN. Wake up, Andrew Luck.
ESPN Radio Sports Center. 95.7 ESPN.
We want to thank the good people of Access for helping us get this interview. Paul Maguire is going to be broadcasting the 122nd Monon Bell Classic college football game between Wabash College and DePauw University Saturday at 1 o'clock on Access TV. You can see that game on DirecTV at Channel 340 and Dish at 167. Or for Time Warner, go to your local listings, AXS.TV/subscribe. Paul Maguire, longtime broadcaster and former Buffalo Bill, joining us now. How are you, sir?
I am absolutely here in Crawfordsville. That's what I said. Greencastle, which is close to Crawfordsville, 27 miles apart. And we just finished talking to players from Wabash and DePauw.
Paul, Wabash, there's a Bills connection there in that one Pete Metzelars was a great athlete there, not only in football, but I think he still holds some Division III records in basketball for field goal accuracy there.
Yes, he does. He lived right up the street from me when I lived in Eden, New York, right outside of Buffalo. And the guy was a hell of a player for the Buffalo Bills, but he also is a really good coach.
Mm-hmm. And DePauw, of course, I think Dan Quayle, right, is a graduate, the former vice president.
I didn't know that.
Well, you can throw that out there tomorrow, see?
I'm not throwing anything out there. I don't like politics.
Okay. Paul, catch us up on 45 years in broadcasting. You know, many of us have watched you for many of those 45 years. Does it seem that long? And take us back to how you got involved and made that transition from professional football player to professional broadcaster.
Well, it was all Kurt Gowdy is the guy that really got me involved in it. During the course of the 11 years that I played, 7 with Buffalo and 4 with San Diego, we did a lot of different interviews. That's when the guys that were doing a game would come in the locker rooms before a game, and they'd get little stories and tidbits. And I got to know Kurt very well, and he asked me, he said, "Do you ever think about going into television and announcing?" I said, "Hell no. I want to get in the bar business. Leave me alone." He actually recommended me to NBC, and I went to New York and I talked to these people, and there was, I think, 11 guys going for one job, and they called me after about 2 or 3 weeks and said, "We've hired you. You're our guy that we want." And I said, "That's fine." And they said, "We'll get in touch with you and let you know when you do a game." 7 games into the season, somebody called and said, "Listen, we want you to do a game in Cincinnati, Houston." And I said, "Well, I'm up." I said, "I thought maybe you guys forgot about me." We're already halfway through the season. They said, "No, we want you to go there." So I went and started, and it's been 45 years, and it went fast.
Who did you work with on that first game, Paul?
Bill Ennis is the guy's name. His brother was a quarterback with the San Diego Chargers, a backup quarterback behind Jack Kemp back in the 60s. And Bill Ennis, we worked 1 year, and in the off season of that year, at the age of 40, the guy dies of hardening of the arteries, if you can believe that. I mean, it was just awful. And so I figured, I hope that's not an omen for guys that work with me, because I wouldn't be able to get a play-by-play guy.
Talking with Paul Maguire, Buffalo Bills legend and longtime broadcaster. I remember growing up watching you with Don Criqui and Marv Albert. And I remember one time, I think it was during a Bills playoff game on a Saturday. Maybe they were playing the Raiders. I think Marv Albert was doing the game with somebody else, and you got into the booth, and it was a 3-man conversation. I just enjoyed the heck out of it. I'm like, man, they should do that more often, because you were at the stadium that day.
Well, I worked with Enberg and Marv and Mike Patrick and Jay Randolph. There's got to be 12. But the guy that I really enjoyed the most was Marv Albert. Very knowledgeable guy. I mean, and very funny guy. And he just, it's a very interesting story, I think, is because when Enberg and Trumpy was with him, they let Trumpy go. And I was working in the second group with Marv. They called me in to New York, and they offered me the number one spot with Dick Enberg. And I said, wait a minute, does that mean I have to, I can't work with Marv? And they said, you're going to be the number one guy, and, we're going to pay you accordingly. And I said, no, thanks. They went, what the hell are you talking about? I said, no. I said, I'm not. I said, I enjoy working with Marv. It's second game, first game. What difference does it make? I mean, it's the people that you work with and that you enjoy the most. And I had never worked with Enberg, obviously. But they said, don't you think you ought to think of this? I said, well, think about this. I said, let me talk to Marv first. And I said, I'll get back to you tomorrow. And they thought I was kidding. So I'm back to the hotel, and I talked to my wife, and I called Marv on the phone in New York, and I said, and I was there. I said, I know he was busy at the Garden doing basketball or something. I'm thinking, I said, they offered me this job. He said, you got to take it. I said, nah, man. I said, we have a good thing going. We've been working together for like 6 years now, and everything is. He said, Paul, you get crazy. He said, take the damn job. So, and that's how I ended up doing it. But I didn't. It's like if you don't like your job, you can't be any good at it. And you got to like the people you work with. It's that simple.
Now, you got a chance, Paul, though, to work with Dick Enberg and Phil Simms, right? Two Super Bowls that you did?
We did, yeah. And that was terrific. I mean, very, very, very professional guy, Dick Enberg, and very easy to work with. And this was when Phil was just breaking in. And basically, we were there to kind of help him. And then if you remember, right after the second Super Bowl we did, that's when NBC dropped the NFL. They wouldn't pay that freight anymore. So they dropped professional football. And then Phil went on to CBS, and he wanted to work alone, which is neat. And then I ended up with ESPN, which is a great thing to happen to me. So everybody worked out fine.
Now, what I want to know, you were ESPN Sunday Night Football from 96 to 2005 with Mike Patrick and Joe Theismann. How'd you get a word in edgewise with Joe Theismann in the booth? That's what I want to know, Paul.
You mean Joe at all?
Yeah. That's a great nickname.
It really is. I you got to let me talk sometime. If you don't, I'm going to nail you on the air. And so we've got along fine. Joe at all was good. I mean, he does know a little bit about everything, and absolutely nothing about anything, but he knows a little bit, and that's good when you get a guy. I always said to him, I said, you're the only guy I know that when you go to bed at night, you wrap your arms around yourself. But I did that teasingly with him, and he appreciated it. He used to laugh and always thought it was funny. He didn't know I was serious, but it doesn't matter. We had a great time. We had 7 years of a lot of fun doing something like this.
Paul, I want to take you back to your playing days, in particular with the Bills and stuff. And you were on some great teams there. Obviously, the '64 and '65 championship team. And just recently this year, they finally got around. The Bills finally got around to putting Lou Saban up on the wall. Give us some Lou Saban stories and maybe the impact he had on you.
Well, Lou Saban was one of those guys that just you love to play for him because his rules were very simple. We went to training camp at the Camelot in Hamburg. He just said, "Look, you guys are here at 11 o'clock at night. If you're not here and you get in trouble somewhere, just don't call me. I'll be at home with my wife. So don't call me on the phone and get you out of jail. You better call an attorney or somebody else. By the time you get back the next day, pardon me, but your rear end is gone." So we all kind of got it, and we understood, what he was talking about. It was his rules, and you do it his way. But I tell you what, one of the greatest things that we remember is 1965. We're playing the San Diego Chargers in Buffalo, and Old War Memorial Stadium. I don't know if you guys were ever around for that thing.
Oh yeah,
It was upstairs, and and the hot dog vendors and everything was downstairs in your locker room. We had 3 showers in that thing, and only 2 worked. and one was a dripper. And then, so most of the guys, we didn't even shower after the games. We just, went out. We smelled like the bars we went to anyway, so it didn't matter. Anyway, we're getting ready. I'm standing next to Cookie Gilchrist, and we're waiting to go down. The officials had already come by, and they said, 5 minutes, which you have to be, down on the field or he's lined up. So I just finished playing the year before with the Chargers, and we won the championship there. So we're waiting, and Cookie yells to Saban. They're in another room, and he said, "The referee's been here. We're going to get penalized. Come on, let's go." And Saban, honest to God, runs down this little ramp, jumped up on the table, and he said, "It's the first time I've been to a game like this. And for most of you, it is. So let me just tell you one thing. Heads down, toes up." Cookie opened the door, closed the door, looked at Saban, and he said, "What does that mean?" And he threw a couple of words in the middle of that. Saban said, "How the hell do I know? I'm as nervous as you are. Let's just go get him." So we're all walking down the steps, and we're laughing our buns off. And here, I walked by Allworth and Lincoln and Lowe, and I just played with these guys the year before.
Right.
Excuse me, let me change it. Played on the same team with these guys the year before. So, and we're laughing like hell, and they were a heavy favorite, and they said, "It's going to be that easy." I said, "There's no way I can explain this to you." But without even knowing it, Saban just relaxed the whole football team. I mean, it was just, he just said things when they came out, they were just totally wrong. They didn't make any sense. But it didn't matter. We won anyway.
Paul, do you follow the current Bills? Is that still your team?
Buffalo Bills?
Yeah.
I still spend 4 months a year. We have a townhouse in Buffalo, and then we live now primarily in Charleston, South Carolina. But, that team, I love that football team. This last year we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the 65, 64, and 65 championship teams. And we had a bunch of guys that came back for it. And then when we went down on the field, nobody knew, not even the guys on the alumni that were there, and they had Lou Saban's son, Tommy, and his 3 daughters were there on the field. And they said, "Well, now can we have all your attention with the closed end of the field away from the scoreboard?" And they put Lou Saban's name up on the wall, and justifiably so, because he was the coach of both of those championship teams. And, the place, the family, the kids just totally lost it, and so did all the players, because, they had talked about putting him on the wall, and he should be on the wall. And I guess there was a rift between Ralph Wilson and Lou when he left. We didn't know what that was about, but the man deserved to be on the wall. It was just unbelievable.
Talk with Paul.
He was a hell of a coach. A lot of stuff he said didn't make sense. What the hell, we didn't make sense either.
Talking with Paul Maguire, Bills legend and longtime broadcaster here in the Radio Press Box, 95.7 ESPN. So you talked about you're not a big fan of politics. How did that bode with Jack Kemp, your former teammate?
We didn't talk politics. Nobody knew that Jack wanted to be a politician. And besides that, I was living in California at that time, so I told him I wasn't going to vote for him anyway. Don't ever ask me for money, because I don't give money to politicians, because I don't know what they do with it. I know they have nice cars and they have really nice clothes, but they don't pass any bills or anything, so why do you want to talk about it? But Jack, I thought Jack made this big mistake when he ran for vice president. He should have run for president. But they talked him into it. That basically killed his political aspirations. But he was the head of HUD, and he, was a hell of a congressman for Buffalo, and a very bright and a very good man.
Paul, Cookie Gilchrist, the late Larry Felser told me that he was pound for pound the best football player he ever saw, and he goes, that includes Jim Brown. What can you tell us about Cookie? What do you remember about him?
Cookie Gilchrist was one of those guys. When he came out of high school, there was a rule in the National Football League that you couldn't play professional football. They couldn't go after you or draft you until your college class graduated, or the year they would have graduated, whether you would have or not. So, in other words, he would have had to wait 4 years. So he went and played in Canada for 4 years, right out of high school. And then when I first got to the Buffalo Bills is when I met Cookie, and I'll tell you that man was. I said it in a in a book. They asked me about Cookie. I said, I loved him. I said, this guy was nuts. What I meant by that was, nothing, feared nothing, no man. We went in 1964, the last game of the season, we played the Boston Patriots in Boston. And this is true. This is a true story. They were waiting in the locker room. And normally the guys are playing cards or doing whatever they're doing, relaxing in whatever way they do before we go out on the field. And everybody's just sitting in their lockers. And we only had 4 coaches at that time. And Saban, those guys were in the back, and the officials came in and said, you get 5 minutes. And Cookie jumped up right in the middle of it. And he just said, I'm going to tell you something. We lose this game, and I'm going to personally beat the crap out of every single guy in this room. And Saban happened to walk out of the coach's room, and he said, and I'm going to start with you. I just crawled back in my locker as far back in that damn thing as I could get because I didn't want to. My locker was next to his, and I didn't want to be hit first. So he scared us so bad we beat the crap out of him, and went on and played the championship game. But the kind of guy Cookie was, whatever he said he was going to do, he did. I mean, here's a guy that's 6'3.5". He weighed 245 pounds, and played fullback, and feared no man. On the very first play of the game, and you can go back and look at the film on this thing, Chuck shot him to the corner, and he came up to tackle him. Instead of Cookie trying to avoid him, he ran over him and knocked him out. And
wow.
Bob D, the defensive end, comes over and grabs Cookie, and he said, "You're next, you SOB." And Jack Kemp took a timeout, went to the sidelines, and said, "Saban, you got to get him out of there. He's going to kill somebody." You want him out of there, you get him out of there. That must be four. And we actually, we went on and won the game. But I tell you what, he was a man that feared no man, nothing. And when he said he was going to do something, he did it.
Paul, 45.
Give me a second. Can you guys just for 1 second?
Yeah.
Is this a free beer you're buying me? Bud, I'll have one. I got a sucker. I got a guy buying me a beer.
Oh, good.
All right.
Well, you can't pass up free beer.
No, never.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
We are?
I can dump it if you like.
That's the first time I've been live. Now, let me explain something to you guys. So you got to get this thing right. It's the Monon Bell.
Monon
Bell. Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Monon Bell.
Okay.
120 some years of this. 122 years, and I've done all but 2 of them.
Paul Maguire.
I mean, what do you've seen my face? This thing's worn out 4 bodies. What's the matter?
I remember Costas used to rip you about, used to hide the extra barbecue sauce under your mustache when he would go back to you in the NFL Live studio.
Bob Costas, I respect dearly. I would never tell you any of the secrets. He's like 5'8". He used to be 6'4". But I'm not going to tell you what happened. It's just not important.
Paul, 45 great years behind the mic. You're still a youngster here. You want to go to 50? What's the goal for you?
I'm done. This is going to be my last one. Unless our producer, Gerald Ewald, with AXS TV, who got me into this game and the UFL, if he wants to continue on and we're going to do it again, and that's the only way I'd ever come back out and do a game. But I just, because I want the networks to hear this, I don't want the ABC and ESPN and NBC and CBS to come hunting me and wanting me and begging me to come back. The answer is no. Unless I'll leave that unless open.
Well, we had that time, and the years are running together for me, but I remember when they brought back some of the old time sportscasters to do NFL games, and it was fantastic because they were all guys I listened to growing up. So maybe we can get a little reunion tour going here. What do you think?
Boy, that would be nice. And the game has not changed. There's still here's the old coaches here. They got 11, we have 11. It's the same thing, but it hasn't changed. Some people have added more color to it, they think, by making the calls so difficult. But it's just, you got 11, you got to play either man-to-man or zone on defense. And, you still have to line up correctly. So the game hasn't changed. they've got a little bit bigger and a little bit faster, and they work out now. It's 12 months out of the year. Hell, when I started playing, after the season was over, they said goodbye, and you had to go get a job.
Right.
But I figured it out. I worked as a bartender for cash, and I collected unemployment. It was really nice. Here I am in the unemployment line. They said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a punter." It's true.
Yeah, no,
I got $100 a week.
Wow.
Games
Didn't even pay my bar tab.
Yeah. Well, Paul, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow doing the 122nd Monon Bell Classic college football game between Wabash College and DePauw University. It's at 1 o'clock on AXS TV. You can see that game on DirecTV channel 340 or Dish at 167, or on Time Warner you can go to axs.tv/subscribe and find out where to see that. Paul, thank you so much. It's a pleasure talking with you, and best wishes.
Thank you very much. Do me a favor. I'm serious. Tell people to watch this. This is Division III, but I can tell you, you're going to see a hell of a football game if you do watch it. And if you guys, like you just said, you guys are going to watch it, right after the game, I'm calling you guys from the car, and we're going to question you on some things. So you better watch the whole game. If you're not, we're coming to Rochester, and we're going to beat the hell out of both of you.
All right. Well, how about if we buy us some drinks if you come to Rochester in exchange for that? Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Hey, thank you, sir.
All right.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Anytime.
Okay. Paul Maguire. Wow. What a storyteller. Man, that was great. I really enjoyed that. 222-6397. And you wrote about him in your book, the first trivia book you put out.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had a picture of him, a young Paul Maguire. He had a nice full head of blonde hair at the time, and, he's in full punting pose there, following through on a kick and stuff. And there was a game that Paul Maguire was working with, one Marv Albert. And I remember being in the press box. I'm covering the game, and somebody comes up to me and says, like, hey, they just mentioned your book on the broadcast there. And he said, like, yeah, Marv Albert was like really busting Paul Maguire when they showed the photo that was in your book and stuff. So I said, hey, any publicity we'll take, free publicity.
The two of them together were great.
Oh, yeah.
But what's funny is that Paul worked well with everybody.
Yeah.
In a way, he was kind of like a Phil Rizzuto type. He could be serious, but at the same time, he could be hysterically funny.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I was joking about, like, how'd you get a word in edgewise? What a great name for Joe Theismann. Joe it all. That's fantastic. But, I just remember he kind of fulfilled that role that, like, Don Meredith did with Howard Cosell and Frank Gifford and stuff, where... Yeah, he kind of kept it light and found the humor and things, and has a lot of great old stories from those. I mean, there's just tremendous stories from the AFL days. There's no question about it.
I was at a wedding recently, and my cousin Sean told me, he goes, man, the best broadcast team ever was Mike Patrick and Paul Maguire and Joe Theismann doing Sunday Night Football. I love that team. I did too. They were great, but Paul made everybody great. And Marv Albert's great on his own anyway, but holy cow.
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder if Paul ever watches his old NFL films, shows those old Super Bowls. Super Bowl 30 with Dick Edberg and Phil Sims doing Cowboys in Pittsburgh. I wonder if he ever goes back and watches them.
Yeah.
And critiques them.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. No.